being recorded. It will be shared with others.
I'll go first.
Got it. Here we go.
My name is Carol Gorlick. I'm living in Irvine, California. You can hear from my voice. I'm a native New Yorker. I've been working with Steve since before he launched the doctoral program at BG. And I've gotten involved in that because I did both my MBA and my doctorate in cohort programs, and am absolutely committed to finding ways that cohort programs are part of particularly doctoral programs, because if we create learning communities, we have a much better result in terms of individuals getting through the program and having an impact ongoing. So this is my calling, what we're doing here. And I would like to see more emphasis on the practitioner scholar than the scholar practitioner. And I don't think the terms are interchangeable. And we've moved to professional scholar in our language, but an outcome for me is to become pracademics. And in Europe, that's a much more accepted term. And there are many PhDs who consider themselves that. And I'd like to see that moving forward. I'm complete.
I guess I can go. I'm David Zabla. I'm at Western Michigan University in Kalamazoo. I run a PhD and a master's program in organizational change leadership. So I think one of the outcomes for me would be a sense of urgency across the group of how important these doctoral programs are, and really there's an emphasis on the need for them for many different reasons, especially in today's crazy environment. So it's around establishing urgency and need for these programs.
Perfect. Thanks, David.
Okay, I guess I'll go next then, since both of you guys are Mid-American Conference schools. I went to Northern Illinois University centuries ago. Got my master's up there. That's why I live in Florida. But I'm Herb Nold. I'm at Polk State.
Yeah.
I'm at Polk State College here in Florida. Polk State doesn't have any master's or PhD programs. We were a junior college for 50 years and have only been allowed to have bachelor's degrees. But my area of research has been started out in organizational culture and how the culture drives performance and innovation. And that has led me into how the culture drives change and I call them the unseen and unspoken elements that keep organizations from being able to change. And so out of this, I would like to see, as I think Carol mentioned, practical applications. I do a lot of work with local businesses, and our students, we're training them for jobs. And so I would like to see practical applications, maybe some concepts, maybe identifying some of the I want to say standardized concepts, but maybe we could identify some things that are really important. They're not really covered. I've actually been asked to design a class, that's my today's project on. The title will be Organizational Theory, Development and Change. And I'm reading different books, and so much of it is the same stuff being repeated. Maybe we could identify things that are maybe not in some of these books, and then maybe some practices or I want to say assignments, that would be helpful that people could steal and put them into their courses.
I feel, excuse me, I feel compelled to go next. I'm Ann Fireherm. I grew up in DeKalb, Illinois, Herb.
Oh, no.
So, yeah, NIU is my father was a professor there. So it's just
And
like,
where are you now?
I am now I work for Pepperdine University. So, I've been around Irvine, but I live in Colorado Springs.
Oh,
So I'm one of those ones that took advantage of, online, and we teach intensive programs, like a week-long program. So I can do that from almost anywhere. So I am at Pepperdine, feels like that. I mean, that is my academic home. And currently I'm on the faculty. I'm a professor of organizational theory. So I'm well aware of the dry, repeated texts, by the way. I use some of them myself, unfortunately. And I'm also a core faculty of our doctoral program, but it's in business administration. So it's taking people in practice. Average age is probably 42, 43 of the students we have in that program, but they're in finance and marketing and org development change and whatever. So it's a potpourri of people. I've been with OD&C as a division for a long freaking time. So I'm very familiar with OD&C and what it's trying to do. So thanks, Steve, for picking up the reins here. I think for me, my interest is I have a sense of urgency too, David. It's like, giddy up, let's get on with it. We're losing, my sense is we're losing the next generation of people to instruct our students. And so I feel a great sense of obligation to the profession of org development change to do something about it. So I would love for people to come away with a sense of urgency as one outcome. The other thing, though, I think we need new forms. I don't know what those are, but new forms of educating. I don't know if it's a collaborative doctoral program that has pockets in all over the world, and yet we're connected somehow. But I would like to see a sense of what is a new form of educating the next generation of people to teach the next generation. I don't know if any of you knew Edie Seashore. She used to teach triple impact. Yeah, Carol's just nodding her head over there. Lovely woman. But she's like, hey, if I can impact somebody else, and they'll impact somebody else, and then they'll impact someone else. So I think that's what I'm all about, is how do we formulate collaborative ways of teaching the next generation of educators so they can teach the next generation of students. There you go.
Great,
And
thanks.
I have to interject.
Okay.
Without losing what we have. And that's one of the most significant tensions right now.
Mhm.
The EDC shores are no longer here, but their wisdom needs to come into what the next generation is having. I'm having lots of conversations about that. And
Yeah.
Robert Crosby just wrote an article about that in the latest edition of ODR.
Okay. Okay.
I can't talk enough about how important what you just said is to me.
Thank you, Carol. I guess that is creating some enthusiasm and urgency here. So what I interpret that as, it's carrying the heart and the values, the essence of some of the OD work, not just the theories, but also the essence. Okay, I'm muting
Yeah.
now.
So say I want to capture that last piece. You said theory and essence. Can you say just a little bit more about that?
Well, sure, and maybe Carol can hop on too, but what I heard you say is there's some wisdom and values that came from the origins of this field. That's why it's such a messy field. It's not just accounting principles. It's not just, it's got some, you need to have a sense of oneself. You need to have a sense of what's going on. There's some essence, some wisdom. I call it heart. There's some heart that goes into this field. Good gracious, we wouldn't be doing what we're doing if we didn't have some heart and soul here. I don't know if that makes any more sense, Steve, but I know you were a student of Kathy, right? Dan
Mhm.
Miller's?
Mhm.
And I think we're talking about that. What she
Yes.
brought.
Mhm.
How
Yeah,
can,
right on. Thanks.
does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And you all can edit and add to the this,
Document.
not outline, this outcomes.
Thanks.
So we're just brainstorming outcomes. You can even add something there, type into the list. You should be able to edit. If you hear something that wasn't said, please add. We just want to get, well, we're going to crystallize a very, focused set of outcomes. So just make sure that we got these outcomes. And when people leave the PDW, how do you want them to leave? Who hasn't gone that can go next?
Actually, I just thought of something, maybe to consider. As I go through these books, most of these concepts, are from the 70s, 60s, and earlier. So maybe one of this would be to invite people to, introduce methodologies, practices for designing organizations for change that have been published since 2000.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, just keep putting stuff in. I'm just make sure we just get all brainstorm. This is brainstorm, and then we'll crystallize. So. Hello, do I need to call or somebody want to go next? Who are you? Where are you? What do you do? Why is this important? This work important? Why are you here today? And
I'll go next.
And what would you like to see come out of this PDW in August?
All right. My name is Heshin Park. I'm an assistant professor in Bowling Green State University. And to me, this doctoral education in OD&C is relatively new. So first of all, I wanted to have listened to others' thought about what the core contents should be, what the new form should be. So I really like the ideas you already shared. So one thing I want to add is we want to have a clear idea about what's different in this doctoral program in OD&C from other related but different doctoral programs like DBAs, other PhDs in OB and HR field. So we have a clear idea about the difference in this kind of doctoral education. And sometimes students are also confused about the difference between OD, HR, OB. So we want to be clear about what the program is, what the content of education is before students apply for this program. And it'd be also helpful for faculty members to come up with their own learning outcomes and learning structure.
Could you say that last part again? So you want the clarity of what this is, kind of distinct from others.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the last part? So what's in the, did you say your last part again?
Oh.
Sorry, do you remember your last part?
I forget already, but but I mean, being clear about the program and the education content will be beneficial for both students and faculty members, because oftentimes people have different things in mind when they think about doctoral program in OD&C. So we kind of can be on the same page with a clear idea about what it generally is. And that will help us design the course, come up with our own learning outcomes, and set up relevant expectations, and etc.
Okay, I think that was the part. So it's like a overview or clarity of what generally should be considered, but then there's also obviously the ability of each professor
Mm-hmm.
to have their own flexibility.
Oh,
but
sure. Yeah.
within a context.
Yeah.
So what's the context?
Right?
Is that what you're?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm clear.
Mhm,
Thanks.
mhm.
Thanks so much.
And if you could look at the list of outcomes, can you
Oh.
summarize what you heard in your words? And hey, Sheen, if you can make sure that when you look at these outcomes, it's represented in there.
Okay, I'll give it my best shot.
Yeah, we just want to make sure we don't miss anything. Okay. I think Tanja, are you, and then Herb, you two need to go.
Okay, then I'll go next. My name is Tanja. I'm at a German university, very north of Germany, Flensburg University, and I'm responsible for the OD&C education for master students here. We don't have a doctoral program for OD&C, but I'm happy to be part of this initiative. And since it's a global initiative, I would be interested in this global perspective. Like we are talking about some models, or that was also the wish to come up with models that work. But I'm interested also in this national perspective. So which models work where? So some models might work for organizations within the US, but maybe not in Europe or Asia or Southern America. So that might also be interested how to get this cultural aspects into this program, maybe, or yeah, this international perspective maybe would be interesting to add.
Okay, I'll jump in. My name's Herb Pullman, another Herb. I'm glad to see we have another one out there. I'm in Mansfield, Ohio, which is, if you're familiar with Ohio, about halfway between Cleveland and Columbus. I'm currently a student in the DOD&C program, also working as a GA with Dr. Katie. I come to the program after retiring after 34 years with the Ohio State Highway Patrol. And my area of interest is institutional influence, particularly with officers' decision-making. So I come heavy on practitioner and light on academics. So the question in my mind is how do you institute the academic side of things in a very pragmatic environment that sometimes is somewhat resistant to that. So that's kind of what I'm looking to learn and gather from all this.
Yeah, Herb's got an article just published in ODR on influencing discretion in police officers, police forces. And you can see it in there. You'll see, I think there's 7 students in that issue from our program. We do a little experience, we do a simulation, journal publishing simulation that results in the students in the program all submitting at the end of the simulation. And so we got out of his cohort, of how many are in your cohort?
Right now we have 13.
Yeah, and I think 10 or 11 out of the 13 have been published with that simulation. And if you look at the recent, if you can put a link to the recent issue, Herb, in the chat, you can see the articles that they wrote about. But influencing discretion is really pretty interesting. And yeah, so that was pretty cool. And hey, Sheen and I work tag team now in the simulation. We've done a different model in our program. We've made some modifications. So we have a whole new group of students from this year that have gone through it and have all submitted in December. And we'll see how they do compared to last year's group and see how, if we've been working different ways to make the process work better. So it'll be pretty cool to see how it works. So this is good. So when you look at the brainstorm ideas, I think what's happening is I'm sitting back, I'm tracking on a few things. I'm tracking on the PDW. I'm tracking on how do we engage people between now and then in a energizing way, right? So how do we build momentum and get people involved between now and the PDW? But I'm stepping back and actually seeing implications of this for the longer term. What is the strategy of this initiative? What is the strategy for us around doctoral education? Literally creating a strategic plan for doctoral education. And I do think it has implications for master's students, but I know you all know that our teaching at the doctoral and master's level, there's a big difference between the two levels. And so I do think there's a unique strategy that's well suited for doctoral education that can have a positive influence on the master's level. And I may pause and say, I'd love to hear your thoughts. When we think of scope, this is really focused on doctoral education, and there is a unique nature to that. So what are your all thoughts around, this initiative is focusing on doctoral education. What are your thoughts that this is focusing on a strategy for doctoral education that will then lead to implementation around things like curriculum development, sharing of teaching techniques and practices? There's like a host of things that will come out of it that will take us a few years to work on, but we need to prioritize our top. So I don't want to have those firmed up yet. I don't want to get to action on the strategy overall. I'm hoping we set the stage for like our goal areas and that we use the PDW as an opportunity for actions. But my question for you, if we step back, when we look at scope, are we focused on doctoral education? And is it different from other doctoral programs? Is it different from a master's program? Sheen said something about that in terms of OD versus HR versus DBA. And so I think people would, that we have a faculty member also that came in this year that taught in a DBA program that will tell you it's definitely different in terms of the focus. The delivery is similar, but the focus is different. What are your thoughts on the scope of what we're looking at?
So I'm an extrovert, so I unmuted. Sorry, I'm just somebody tell me it's enough. We've heard enough from you, Anna. But I do think it's different. I think you're right, Steve. I've taught in doctoral and masters, and I do think that the ODEA, the Organizational Development Educational Association, has done a pretty decent job with looking at master's programs, and I think bachelor's maybe. They're trying to, so I think it's a distinct. It's more academic. Good luck, Herb. Keep at it. Keep working that. How do you put those together? Academic and practice. So AI would agree with you on that. And then is it different from OB? Is it different from HR? And I think that is topically different. So I think it's where OD gets in the mess, of course, is it ties into a lot of different topics, a lot of different areas. I mean, someone was here on the bigger call, not this call. He was political science, forgot his name. So it taps into these different topics, but it's not the same. So I think there is a distinction. And I think it's more practical. It's closer to a DBA because of the practice. There you go. My 2 cents.
Yeah.
5 cents.
Inflation.
I also agree totally, and I think it's the practice, and that if we do this well, there's action research as opposed to theoretical research. And I think the emphasis on qualitative, in the moment interventions is extremely rare, and what is the opportunity for this field to really make a difference. And I'm saying it again, it's the integration of the theory and the practice. And so one of the overarching messages that I believe the DODC program is giving is everything has to be evidence-based. And I think that's a unique piece of this that has more emphasis than in a master's program, that people learn how to capture evidence and then analyze it so that it's useful and relevant. Rigor and relevance is important to me.
Yeah, but Carol, I think that your comment about using action research, using, data, from like real life situations is good, because that is what you, rather than these artificially created, strict research environments. I think that's where you come up with information that's, I think, more useful to the practitioner, if that makes sense. Yeah, I have a colleague I work with he lives in Switzerland, and we've developed a diagnostic instrument that looks at all these different variables within organizations that prevent change. We call them viruses that sneak in. And we've now collected data with this from over 400 organizations, from mostly in Europe, but also, from around the world. So now we're slicing and dicing this data, okay, and looking for patterns and things in there. In fact, I'm writing a book now with him on organizational life cycles, okay, using Griner's model and saying, okay, with this data we've collected, what do the different patterns, are exhibited at different stages? And more importantly, what can you do to prepare to go to the next stage of growth? Okay, but I've had sometimes a lot of criticism when I've submitted papers, because they say, well, it's not strict research. Well, sorry about that, but we have collected data in a real environment. We're using a statistically validated instrument. So I get criticized, like, well, how did you control for that? Well, can't necessarily do that because it's a real life environment.
Yeah, and Herb, when you look at the some of the I'm trying to remember, Denny Joya spoke at the last Academy.
Mhm.
He's right there with you. He's like, look, man, my best stuff, the most cited stuff, the most used work I've done has been the stuff that's been more practical, more alternative. That's why there's Academy Management Discoveries now, and there's like different journals out there, and there's lots of. I think we're at a very good opportunity. If Carol, if you can be taking notes, I think we want to make sure the PDW. I think it needs to shift the conversation to one of what is possible, a sense of urgency, but really one of, hey, we are to emphasize that there's something possible now that was not possible before.
Yes.
So I think people need to leave the PDW going, wait a second, there's something possible now that was not possible before. And I think going back to, David, your point is that doctoral education, particularly the kind of education that we are doing with OD&C, professional doctorates and academic doctorates, but we do not have one academic, I don't know if you know this, there's not one academic doctorate in OD&C that exists. They really are working adult professional doctorates that have people that can go into academia, but not into R1, R2 institutions, tenure track, doing research track. That's not what we're not preparing them for that. But what if we did have a small group that we start preparing the next generation, and going back to your point, What if we started preparing both? What if we had professional doctorates and people doing good academic research? You got to look at some of the dissertations as you all have in your programs, some really good stuff that's going to get published, and they want to stay in practice, and they want to do maybe lecturing level. They don't want to go to the R1, R2 into that environment, but there are 2 or 3 that say, I want to do that. Right? So there's something possible now that wasn't possible before. So maybe leaving the PDW with that sense of that, you know, would be really good.
Yeah, a couple of things. I just in the chat, I did a link to this whole notion of superordinate goals. So maybe there's, and this is in management research, this particular article, but I wonder if we could begin to distinguish ourselves around these more superordinate goals, you know, versus, you know, some of the, you know, the typical research where you're extending a theory or a model or whatever, you know. So I think that, you know, reduced inequalities and good health and education, these are all interesting. And so maybe we leave with a sense that, you know, this particular initiative is really going to focus on the big problems, you know, that's where we're going to focus our efforts. Another thing that I want to mention is this notion of action research versus other methodologies. I'm just finishing a book with Passmore and David Coughlin, and it's research methods in organizational change, and it's part of a whole series of Edward Elgar research handbooks. And we have 20 chapters, each very distinct approaches to studying organizational change, and hopefully it'll be out for Boston. We're actually putting together a symposium on the book, but there's a vast number of methods that we've uncovered through this development of this book that can be used to study change. So
yeah, right, and I think, David, going back to another point is this initiative, if can help to demystify, concise, focus in, help people that don't have the time, the up and coming faculty, the teachers, kind of, we got to like boil it down because there's so much. How do you make sense of where to focus? Right. So maybe one outcome of this initiative, not outcome of the PDW, but maybe it's setting the foundation for a strategy that will enable us to focusing in or concising where we're going, or helping something along. I don't know how to say it.
So the moment of possibility is so supported. Every day there are things that come into your feed that talk about the demise of the tenured professor. And there are less and less people who are literally planning to only, and I do that with great respect, that people who choose to be in the publishing line are very valuable. But in order to be practical and produce outcomes, people are recognizing that the classic tenure track role is not viable. So we can do lots of literature search to support the possibility and the need at this particular moment to have practical programs.
And I would offer that we, rather than saying that tenure track is not relevant, because I think
I'm not saying it's
argue
not
that.
relevant, and I didn't say that, Steve.
Well,
It's
I just want to make sure.
important.
I know I want to. I think what I heard and you know what needs to be done is like, what is the future professor look like?
Exactly.
And what is the opportunity that we see with 45-year-old, 55-year-old, 65-year-old people getting doctorates and even maybe PhDs if we go to the academic PhD level? What if you have someone getting a tenure track position at 55 years old and a research one institution? And they've got another 20 years. How many people go and leave after 10 years anyway? 20-year career of publishing.
I got my
That's great.
doctorate when I earned it when I was 61.
Yeah.
And retired from business. And that's why my focus is really on, application. How do I apply this? And I admit I have 30 years of trying to do all this stuff in the business world before finding religion,
Before finding it, huh? Love
Yes.
it.
So now I'm 72 years old. People want to know when I'm going to retire, and I go, why should I? I enjoy what I'm doing. I
Right,
get to
right.
travel to conferences all over the world. I'm planning on going to the European Academy of Management in Dublin, and my school pays for it. Why?
What's not to love, huh?
Yeah,
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, so this is
I'm
good.
hearing portfolio. I'm hearing there's a portfolio of faculty. I'm hearing there are multiple paths to do this work. But that's just what I was hearing. So what are the different, it's no longer one size fits all. It's no longer you work hard, you get your doctorate at age 30 and you find a tenured position and you hope there's a master's program in OD that you can teach in. I
Right.
mean, that was the,
Yeah, I got mine in OB and I love the practice and love the human side of the work. Didn't really understand OB because I was told at Florida State in R1 that OD is sort of a, not to be looked at. Don't spend too much time on the OD, focus on the core hard science of OB. And I came up here and the whole world opened up and that was back in the 90s. So it's changed. But
Yep.
then I fell in love with the field, got to know the field, got really immersed in the field, found out that I had been doing a lot of that work in the field. I'd been to T groups before without even, and they were intrapersonal intensive workshops led by people that had been trained at NTL, but they were called something different. But I was going through all that stuff. And I also was like, wow, my world opened up. But it's different today, right? So there's something different now. So it's relevant now. People are asking for it now. Like I said, I don't know if I mentioned to you all, the number one most inquired about program at BGSU of all master's or doctoral level programs, all of them is OD&C, our doctoral program. It's the most inquired about program of any program. We just started, right? And so there's a really this is hot. So is there anybody have anything else? Because I want us to now take all this above. I got a table I created below. When we look at the PDW, let's not worry about the time. How much time? Let's just think that we know that people can come together sometime, a half a day, a full day, 2 days. It's wide open, right? But let's think no more than 2 days. But if we have people come together, what do we want people to walk away with from the PDW? Based on everything above. We have 2 days, it's in August. What are the outcomes of the 2 days? Above has a lot of implications for a larger strategy. Above has a lot of implications for how we do the engagement over the next year or so with everybody and build this initiative. So of all the stuff above, what is one important outcome from the 1 day, probably, maybe 2? It'd be, what would you say?
Excitement about the possibility of moving the field. That's what I heard.
Okay.
I wonder if another outcome is discovering maybe the distinction or being clear. I think, hasn't talked about the distinctive, what's distinct? So getting clarity on the distinctiveness of what we're trying to do. Oh, you know, OD&C doctoral education.
So say it one more time again. So they leave the 2 days and something, it's about the key keyword is distinct.
Yes, so that I could come to somebody and say, oh, what's distinct about this OD&C education, doctoral education? What is distinct about it? And I would say, boom, 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 boom. So that we have a common understanding of the distinctiveness of an OD doctoral education.
That's really an interesting, like you'll come to this workshop and then you'll walk away with that. That would cause people to say, I want to be there. I want to attend that PDW.
Well,
You know,
then,
I think, I agree. I think that's an interesting observation. You know, this is such an interdisciplinary field, if you will. You know, I mean, it's a lot of psychology, but you have to understand like operations, you know, how do you go off and you know, organize for performance? And then what do you do when the world changes? You know, your product was selling well yesterday, but today it's obsolete. So I think that that's the, you know, how do we define this as a separate distinctive? I think as Dan, you were, and the distinctive, it's distinctive, yet it's still so interdisciplinary. To be good, you've really got to combine psychology and all these other
right.
you know, areas of study, if you will.
Sure.
So you know, walk away with those 3 things. What else you want? David, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Well, I think it's this idea of sort of rethinking, you know, reinventing the doctoral program. And I guess what I mean by that is, you know, why should my students only take classes at my university? So expanding on this notion of interdisciplinarity, it's inter-university collaborations, you know? So, I mean, why can't my students take a class at Pepperdine, you know, or why can't the Pepperdine students take a class with me? So it's, you know, really building on where's the expertise, because we all don't have, I don't have all the expertise in my program that I need, you know, and I think all of you could probably say the same, you know. So it's how do we tap and how do we collaborate with one another, and where do the degrees come from too as well? I mean, there could be a lot of interesting, you know, I was kind of building off with you know, what Ann said about these pockets, you know, and this growth of pockets around the world, and how do we create something wildly different, you know?
I love it.
So hey Sheen, and it's really cool because hey Sheen, you come with an HR focused background, like I came with an OB background. You come in, I see a similarity to coming in and really exploring what is OD&C and the implications of it for that. So you really are at that front end. You're the next generation. So for all of us talking about that, he is the next gen. Tanya, I would say, it's probably next generation. I would see that. Herb, potentially next generation, you know, it depends on where he wants to go professionally. But what do you, when you look up here at the 4 outcomes that I put under the PDW column there, that I just got, well, we're trying to boil down and say, of all the stuff above, what needs to come out of that 1 day together? What needs to come out of that maybe 2 days? What is one that you would add, or what's missing that you would want to see you get out of the day or 2 together during that?
Well, actually, the second one is a very good question regarding what is distinct about OD&C doctoral education is exactly what I thought. When I first actually engaged in this program, that was the very fundamental question that I wanted to know. So as you mentioned, Steve, I'm from HR, OB. I wanted to be clear about how it is different, not just about the content, but about the form, structure, goals, about this education. So if I could get several answers to that question with this PDW, I will be very, very satisfied.
In order to what? So if you got that, it would help you what? In order to? If you
For
understood that
me-
distinction in order to, yeah.
I mean, it'll be really beneficial for me to redesign my course and set up a new learning outcomes for my students and come up with new materials and you know, have more confidence in what I'm doing in my classes.
But you could end up creating marketing materials that the universities could use to sell their programs too. This is what's unique,
Right.
and that
All
would
right.
get.
So at the end of the thing, and so Tanya, this is for you and Herb, you and others that haven't yet kind of put one in here. You're going to walk away excited about the possibility of moving the field forward, a sense of urgency for what's possible now that wasn't possible before, and that it's urgent. It's really important. Second, be able to answer the question, what's distinct about doctoral education, OD&C doctoral education, what's distinct about it, and what are the implications of that for how we design our courses and how we market and how we talk about. The third is you'd walk away with a sense of the interdisciplinary international nature of the field. The fourth is we'd re-exploring and look at rethinking and reinventing what is doctoral education and looking at new educational forms, new ways of collaborating. What would you all say if you saw that? Tanya, what would you say, and what would you want to add to make it compelling for you to come all the way from Germany to I think it's Orlando or Boston. I think
Boston.
It's Boston, and I'm about to book my flight to Boston. That's on my list for tomorrow or the day after.
What needs to be on here for you to say I'm coming?
I already bought it. The program, I mean, the PDW. I like it very much. I think we should create a momentum and say, okay, in this changing world, we need to reinvent ourselves and our field. That's what it's already there in these sentences. And in this changing world, how should I change my program at my university in order to prepare the next generation to cope with these new challenges? And I think it's the time now, and yeah, and to get some orientation how to do that. What should I focus on, and what methods are best for this new context? I think it's great to have a conversation about it with other experts and then make sense of it, right? Yeah.
So I like what you said. Help you all can remind me, maybe you heard what Tanya said. You said something important. I don't remember exactly. How will I change my program and my courses to, and this goes back to, Haishin, what you were saying too, but what is it that you said, or what did you all hear her say? To what I put in there, that little parentheses, because it was something that she said that after. What is the courses to what?
For the next generation to cope with the changes. What should I focus on?
Since I cannot do all, I have to make a decision. And how do I make this decision to focus on something that is really important and enables the next generation to be active and to really have an impact? And
Generation
not only
of
to
who?
know the models, but really
Who's the next generation? So the next generation of instructors, professors, faculty? Are we focused on faculty teaching?
The next generation of change agents may be master students or doctoral students or educators. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting because it has implications, right? Because if we help faculty know where to focus, going to the triple impact, then it's the faculty are teaching and helping the students know where to focus, right? So it's really the triple impact, starting with faculty to students to practice, kind of a way. I think I'm hearing that, like because I do think it's like, when I look at Haishin and your point around, like, I want to feel more confident what I'm doing. There's all this stuff. What am I focusing on? Is this the right stuff? How do I know? And I want to help focusing. I want to help structuring, and I want to feel confident that I'm picking the right stuff to focus on, and the ways in which to teach it and stuff like that. So it's content and it's process, right? That's what I'm hearing.
I'm using the term, the VUCA term, more and
Yeah.
more in my writings, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that may apply to the educational world as well as to the business world. How do you develop a curriculum that gives your students the tools to adapt in that world that we live in? Maybe kind of work that in somehow. Because that's what I'm focused on in my work, is how do I get design organizations and leaders to be able to adapt when a pandemic hits or your product is no longer viable.
So
Change quickly.
yeah, this is good. Herb, this is good. So as you all look up there, you see under the PDW column, these are things that will happen during that one day, maybe two, right? We'll clean it up. I'll have it cleaned up. I'll work on wordsmithing and stuff for you to look at next Tuesday. So this is about us at least identifying, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 outcomes. Is that the right 5? And you can soak it. Next week we might add a 6th, change one, so it's not the end, but this is for now.
In my
David, what do
first
you
thought,
think?
it's good. That's a good comprehensive list.
Okay, cool, good, okay. And David, what do you think?
Yeah, I keep on thinking about this next generation Tavistock Institute,
Right.
So I mean, what does, if we were to create some sort of, what are we doing? Are we creating a consortium, an institute? What about some funding? There's all those other sort of practical issues as we move forward.
Yeah, I put that in the larger strategy piece because, David, this is what I think is emerging. If we can keep together long enough to have a conversation that will lead to more than just a definition of what is OD&C. I've been to more gatherings. Those of you that have been around the band will tell you, but I've been to more gatherings or meetings where the end result is a new definition for the field. And I look at the definition and I go, it's really not any better than what's been already shared. And everybody keeps saying, what is OD&C and what's the definition of OD&C? I believe, one, we need to shift the conversation to, it's not about what is the definition, what's your, and we're going to give you some perspectives, but you got to figure it out. Our students are asking us right now. Haishin will tell you, tell me what is the definition. They want to be told, and we got to. And at the doctoral level, what we're trying to do is say, stop. You're no longer in the space of being told what to think. We want you to take this information and you come up with it. And they're like, but I want it now. I need to have it sooner. I need to have it this. No, but right. So I think that's another larger strategy conversation, right? But how we teach it. And I think we need to identify during this PDW, this issue, but at the same time, we got to address, it's going to take time to address it. But when I looked up at the next generation consortium point, David, I think it's not inventing a replacement necessarily for NTL, Tavistock, or others. I think it's about creating a space to like a consortium of knowledge, because they don't talk well to each other. NTL doesn't talk to Tavistock well. And to be honest with you, the Human Relations Board and Journal doesn't talk well to the Tavistock professionals that run Tavistock Institute. So Tavistock and Human Relations is the journal. And they'll tell you, we really don't talk much. When you go to NTL, if you all know, if anybody's been watching the NTL and jabs conversation, they were getting ready to sell jabs, and I fought no, right? I fought it because I was on the board 2 years ago, and we didn't do it. But they were going to sell jabs to Sage and get rid of it because it was, then Sage was going to pay $1 million for the journal. And I was like, I don't think, but then Gavin will say, I got to get more people in NTL. So NTL and the journal and so they've done something like the practitioner corner. And now people are writing and it's being published in jabs and beginning to create this. So my point being, we got to look at that, David. I think we got to look at not replacing, but talking about creating an infrastructure similar to this cool idea around universities, right? What about the second one? Consortium of programs and thought leaders.
Yeah.
Across programs. What if we have unique programs that are partnering and sharing? And what if we are allowing that? Like, you know, I'm a chair of the TAG, Transfer Assurance Guidelines in the state of Ohio. What does that mean? For Principles of Management Organizational Behavior. A student can take a course in OB down at University of Cincinnati. And if that course is, if the university's got their course in the Transfer Assurance Guidelines, that student can transfer to another university and get automatic credit for that class at another university. So it literally is enabling non-traditional students to get a degree from multiple get a degree because they can take classes across multiple institutions. It's already being done.
Right.
So what if we were creating courses that you could take at other places? Now there's issues of money and there's issues of this and that. We can work all that out. But that could be a larger strategy initiative. Like, how do we collaborate in research, course delivery, you know, those kinds of things. So I'm just getting sparked. So I want to go to the PDW. What else is there? Anything else you want to add there? Herb said he likes it. That's his 5. Anything missing on the 5?
At this point in time, I'm good with it. And as you said, percolation, it's always a good thing.
Yeah. So there's one more that I'd like to add in there that I think goes back to the overall initiative. So you can help me frame it. I want people to leave as a part of a global initiative where we're going to continue the work after. So a clarity on how we're going to, a strategy and how we're going to work over the coming years to implement in a structured platform, if you will, an infrastructure. So I don't want people to think that we're coming together, we're talking, going to create a new definition of OD&C, and then we're going to leave, you know, at the end of the day. But we want to, how would you say that we're going to take the initiative and we want to identify key strategic areas and use that to build a program initiative? How would you say that about moving forward?
Okay, so let me make sure I'm clear. I come to this, I walk away, I go, cool, now I know a little bit more about everybody else and what the OD&C doctoral education is unique and distinct, blah, blah, blah. Thanks, that was good. I'm done. You don't want that. You want, oh, that's cool. How do I get my voice in there? How do I get my institution there? How do I continue to be involved? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, it's kind of like set priorities for the next, 5 to 10 years, where we will focus on transforming the field together
Okay.
in a structured, I have a better way of saying structured and coordinated fashion, right? So that we're going to literally build a community focused on doctoral education.
Okay. Inclusive ecosystem to support OD doctoral education. I don't know why. include, but it's like, how am I included? And it's bigger. It's like this whole, it's research, it's institutions, it's individuals, that's what I heard. What is my path in? What's the structure? What's the mechanisms to build this, what I'm calling an inclusive ecosystem around OD doctoral education? Sorry.
Yeah, that's good. I got that help.
I'm muting myself.
Yeah, no, that's good. Thank you, Ann. No, that's good. That's good. What else would you all add as you think about that piece? How would you say it?
I like ecosystem, I think, because it's more than just programming. You know, it's research and dissertations and all kinds of things that there could be all these different collaborations, you know, around specific areas of study or around the grand challenges that we all may decide that we want to focus on or something.
Yeah, I like that term ecosystems, creating that ecosystem of, where multiple organizations collaborate. And it would have to include, I would say, also include businesses or external to the school too. I like that term.
Okay. Anybody, Aishin, Tanya, Carol, Herb, what would you add?
Well, I also like the term ecosystem because it allows us to cooperate or collaborate on different ways, and not only within this program. But I'm not sure what is your personal goal, Stephen? Is it to develop your doctoral program at your university and open it up and cooperate with other programs, or what is your idea with it?
Yeah, so I would go back to the website we have. Herb, could you put the link to the website in the chat? So in there, I kind of outlined that, you know, the original proposal is I want to look at how we can transform, advance the field of OD&C through doctoral education. So that's at the core what I want to do. And I think there's some outcomes there that really get at, you know, understanding what's the current state and the opportunities and some of the challenges with doctoral education, particularly OD&C, and what we're doing. Like, for example, me uncovering through my search for all programs that there's not one academic research tier 1, tier 2 oriented program in OD&C. That's why OB looks down upon OD&C at the academy and, you know, other divisions, because they say, they're not like us. But I think that the science, the social and behavioral sciences underneath this work is really important. So for me, it's about elevating the importance of it. It's about and us figuring. I love convening. So for me, it's about convening us all to figure out what we can do together, because I think there's an opportunity. So I don't have a specific agenda other than I think we can elevate the importance. We can create a strategy. We can lobby for the importance of it at government levels. You know, we can go to high government and say, look, you need to be bringing this stuff into the work of government. We need to recast it. I don't know if you know, like in the United States, OD&C and the job listings, the United States job listings, job classifications. If you go and look, you'll see that OD&C is listed under training and development, which is listed under IO psychology. So OD&C is under training and development under IO psychology as a job classification. That doesn't make sense to me. I don't know about you, But that's not, so somebody hasn't been watching the store and advocating for the field. I think we could do marketing. Got Milk, got OD&C. You know, like we use in the United States, we have a campaign of Got Milk and people that have mustaches of milk. And they're trying to promote milk, you know, as an industry. What if, you know, what if we promote? So those are things that I have things that I want to do to like promote it, influence government. But we need to figure out who we are, like you're saying here, what we want to be. And I think I've been to so many conferences and talks and gatherings. The one thing that has never been at any of them, it's the doctoral faculty are always on the fringe at all these events. Always at the fringe, and they get frustrated and they leave before it gets too far along. And they're like, they're just doing, this is, and then the practitioners are leading the conversation. And then what happens next? They get back to consulting and doing work, and they don't have time to follow up on what was talked about. So I think this is our way to shift it. So that's me, that's where I'm at. So that's why I think this last one for me is about, we got a longer term focus. We need to really reinvent the field through doctoral education by doing that. And somebody just entered the room. I'm not sure if this is I hope this is I don't know who this person is. So we'll see who I'm admitting. We'll see what happens. Sometimes people find you and get in there.
Who is Philip? Hi, Philip.
Hi, Philip.
By the way, I want to just say, great question, Tanya, that you asked Steve. I just got a whole different opening into what's driving you, Steve. So thank you for asking the question and, you know, elevating this idea, you know, the idea of elevating and being strategic, and I love it.
Hello, welcome.
Hello, this is Mutisha. I apologize. I missed the last meetings and I always comes in the wrong time. But today I say, even if I'm late, I'm gonna join. I am Professor Philip Masila Mutisha, Professor of Education, North Carolina Central University. And we're working on 3 doctoral programs in the university in my senior years before I exit. So I thought this group would be great. I needed to just touch base to know how you work and how I can be of help and
Awesome.
also participate.
Great, Phil. Well, welcome. Thank you. We are talking about 2 things. We're first talking about a PDW at the Academy of Management. So we were asked to put in if you look at the email that I sent out, you'll see that. So we're really focusing on what do we want to do in a day if we bring people together in August and we're going to focus on, then we're going to look at what do we want to do between now and then. But we're really focused on that PDW to give us something concrete to hold on to. We've been talking about the outcomes for that day at the Academy around a PDW. And there's a link to the website that we have for this initiative. You can go to that website. It's in there. Herb, you might want to post it again because he came in, it won't show up for him.
Okay.
So you can see the website, but if you could also post a link to this document so we can see the working document we're in.
Okay.
And I think what we could do is I think we should try this out on Phil. We're going to focus on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 outcomes for the PDW that we are designing for. This is not wordsmithed yet. This is just 6 concept areas.
Yes.
And who would be willing to summarize that list and see how it lands for you? So Philip, if you were thinking of going to a PDW at the Academy of Management and the OD&C division, and you were deciding to come early enough, did you say you're in Ghana?
No, I'm in North Carolina.
You're in North Carolina.
North
I
Carolina.
didn't hear you. I thought you said Ghana.
No,
Okay.
North Carolina Central University in Durham, North Carolina.
Durham. Okay. All right. Okay.
And I needed just to see what you're doing so I can see how I can give input. And so because the PD, you say PD?
Professional Development Workshop at the Academy of Management. So
Yes.
if you look at the chat, you'll see a link to the,
Yes.
Can you put the link to the PDW, Herb, in there for them, the PDW page?
I see it.
But you can go to our website for the initiative. You can see the document that we're designing
Yes.
for the PDW. But you can also go to the Academy. I'll put a link in there so you can go and see where on the Academy of Management's website about the PDW. What is a PDW? Essentially, a PDW is any format we want, 1 day, 2 days, half a day session. And we're looking at what outcomes we want from that 1 day session. We're just thinking of it as being a day, but we can
Yes.
always change that. There are 6 outcomes. Could somebody summarize the 6 outcomes just to see? And Philip, if you think about these 6, would you want to go to a PDW based on these 6? Could someone
Okay.
summarize it for Philip?
Okay.
I can give it a shot.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe I'll give it. All right. Hey, Philip,
Yes.
listen, I just met you, but I think you might be interested in attending a half-day dialogue, discussion, workshop, if you will, on the field of doctoral education in OD&C, org development change. And this PDW is going to, hopefully when you walk away, you're going to have some excitement about the possibility of moving this field forward, the OD&C field forward. Almost a sense of urgency, not only excitement, but hey, something needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. Now, the other, another objective that we have is that by the time this is over, you will have engaged enough dialogue and we will have come to some understanding about what is distinct about the OD&C doctoral education. It could be the structure of it that's unique, the goals, and what we cover. And if you come out with that, then you'll be more confident in designing things for your own students. Another objective is that OD&C is a very interdisciplinary field. We have public policy folks, we have government folks, we have psychology, we have social psychology, economics, and you'll get the understanding of the interdisciplinary, and by the way, international. We have Tanya here who's going to be a part of it. She's from Germany. You know, we've got a guy in Japan. Anyway, then we actually want to do what our field does, which is rethink and reinvent. Rethink and reinvent doctoral education. It might be inter-university collaboration. It might be faculty rotate. It might be students get to rotate and get credit. So we're trying to come up with how do we collaborate to innovate, to meet today's world. And given that so another outcome, and by the way, I think there's quite a few outcomes here. So maybe it's a day long PDW, I don't know. That we will, let's see. Okay, we're looking at a new context, right? There's so it's called triple impact, or we're thinking of triple impact. We impact professors in the field, or educators in the field. Educators in the field will then impact the generation of students that will then impact practice. So we're trying to figure out what is that cascading, and it's a VUCA environment. As you know, it's crazy. Well, this is where we come in. This is where OD&C comes in, and then really set the next priorities for 5 to 10 years from now. So this is not the only time you're going to see us and be with us, because we're going to set longer term strategies on how we build together a structured community, an inclusive ecosystem. So what do you think, Philip? Are you going to come join us?
I like the first set, collaboration.
Collaboration.
I needed to hear partnerships.
Okay.
Because today's world, global engagement and globalizing what we do, because we have to think not only local, but we act now global, not instead of the other way around.
Perfect. Yay.
I like engagement, and I like the word dialogue.
Okay.
And the dialogue leads to action, and action leads to practical application in applied science. I like that.
Okay.
Actually, you have a statistical model where a colleague of mine created, which is talked about try thinking. try engineering thinking. I like that. I hear that. We have
Okay.
and then an innovation and an idea of international. For example, I come from Kenya originally, and the
Okay.
whole education system is under overhaul because it becomes obsolete and also solvent because the design was designed from European culture, and the research has never been part of it because the Africans themselves, they're supposed to just learn up to masters, not to doctorate.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's a second-class education system. So we need to talk about strategic thinking, shifting the mindset to growth mindset and innovation, and create producers of knowledge, not consumers. All the education system, even here, is more designed towards consumer. What you're going to go get but they know, innovative thinking and critical thinking, metaphysics and all that. The learning to learn process. That's why I can introduce you to Academy of Process Education, which we have been struggling to do the same, but never specifically by a graduate school like master's and doctorate. Also planning from down up. I'm supposed to come down, top down. I like that. All those outcomes and those objectives, I can contribute. I've been in academia over 35 years and created doctoral program of Fayetteville State. And then here we are trying, in Central, we have been trying to create doctoral programs, but people don't know how to do it.
Okay.
So I see why I can benefit from that. Actually, it should be 2 days, not 1 day.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's great. So what I would say is, and that is the next question. So when we look at this, the next question is how long and who needs to be involved? And we're going to go till just a little bit before the top of the hour so that you all can make transition to other things that you have going on. But I'd like to know how long, and I will vet out how long they're willing to engage. I'll talk with and say, hey, this is what we're talking about. How long do you think we should be looking at? How long? But I'd like to know if you had if you had to pick anything you wanted, how long should it be? And then who should be involved?
I have a clarifying question, Steve. Do you know if the PDWs, as in the past, will be before the actual academy? So that I
So
don't
if you go in,
have-
so if you go in and you look at the submission guidelines, you'll see it says there that they PDWs, you go in there and click on the link for submissions and read that. You'll see that it says that they happen on Friday and Saturday.
So they will not interfere, or they will interfere with presentation. So I have to make it, my question is, do I, as a participant in this, have to make a choice between going to the standard presentations?
There'll be presentations, there'll
W?
be some, if I understand correctly, there'll be presentations. I think they, can you all check on that? Because I think presentations are happening on Sunday, Monday,
Right.
And Tuesday.
and
Are they?
Tuesday. So the weekend has a lot of PDWs and other types of things. And then Sunday, they kick it off. They might even have the convening opening on Sunday, maybe.
Right.
And then they go into Monday, Tuesday.
Historically, that's true.
Yeah. So, but I
But
just
I
want to know,
think
I'm not, I
What?
want to know, like, how long do you want it to be based on the outcomes? Philip already said 2 days.
Yeah. I can
Is
see
that,
it.
is that realistic?
Like,
I can ask, right? Because like next week, we may have to shape the outcomes based on the feedback I get.
Because when I was involved in creating a PDW, we had 90 minutes and we asked for 2 hours, and that was a problem. We got 2 hours at the end, but that was really hard. So I wonder if it's realistic to have a full day, but
Yeah, I think I can ask. I think we should ask, and then they can come back and tell us. So here's the reason why I think we may have more opportunity. Because
My
each
sense
of-
is, given the scope of some of the topics we have, two 90-minute sessions, one each day, we could divide up some of the topics for each day. Two 90-minute sessions, I think, would probably work. Allow us
So
to cover
half
the
a day.
waterfront.
A half a day. That's basically half a day. I know there are some that get away with a chunk. I think Action Research normally has at least a half a day, if not a full day. Philip, do you know about that? Are you part of it?
Yes, that's how we find when you want to make sure that you're producing something at the end of the conference, not these, most of the for professional organization development workshops. I've been attending them, and I come out and say, I would have gotten a little bit better, but it depends on interactive sessions. And the interactive section, you have to give enough room not to be focusing on to finish on time.
Yeah.
Is to engage. That's what dialogue is. And then even if it's not finished, you pursue later. For the first day is to share idea with, for example, a good keynote with the subject at hand, what by all of us we want to benefit from. Then the dialogue is how we, there should be a dyad or, some team. So you action-based approach whereby you have a dialogue outside the main general presentation. Then you come back and see what we learn, and we look at the assessment, not the evaluation, in terms of what did you grow, and this have a reflection on that, and the share. Then we see how the synergy comes out of learning. Then the next sessions will be action. After theory, discussion, model, then how to implement the model and how to engage other people in order to grow, not just to have a conference or academy, and then there should be a good measurable approach, methodology approach of capturing that learned experience, not just memorization.
Yeah, like if I had my druthers, I would have a session that focused on understanding the current state, understanding what's going on,
Yes.
just having an agreement around critical issues and the opportunities. The next session would be a strategy document that would be crafted by the time we're there for people to give input on and like improve. That would all be on day one. And then a small group of us that want to would work after that offline to rewrite the strategy based on what we heard that day.
Yes.
Then we go to a third session in which we would do action planning and try to set a clear set of priorities that we'd want to move on with that. And I would see it as 3 2-hour sessions.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do.
And based on, you bring an issue or objective or goal you want to achieve from your respective constituent or from your institutions. For example, I see myself coming up with developing how to develop effective mentoring for faculty. We don't have that. Guiding the person who is hired and through the tenure process, and how do you adapt them in the system? And I'm not thinking about doctorate degree alone. No, this is a higher education and the whole nutshell. Until you come to terminal level of your career. So that dialogue needs to be done. And how do you organize that? Then also leadership is a key. Leadership is needed over the world. You can examine how do you empower leaders to empower others in an institutional, and then how does it relate to this level mission and the vision of this group. And if I will read a little bit and see how you started and how can I bring my issues So I get away from the issues. I benefit from not only personal, but to take back my perspective, institution or institutions. And that's a good idea about the 3-hour. This dialogue is not a discussion or an argument debate. There's a quote I like to share with you. It's with Jane Vella, who was a colleague, and she's 90 now. We learned from Paulo Freire, the pedagogy of the oppressed. He was a resident scholar when I was grad school at UMass. And she says, the means to learning is dialogue. The end of dialogue is learning. However, the end of learning is peace, which makes a purpose of education. Understanding the philosophical orientation and the intellectual diversity we bring in, we have to have a dialogue and then let someone conclude what they got out of the dialogue. Not I'm some good speaker, I'm good presenter. No, it's what can we take to change and transform, not to be so transformative. But that's kind of and how we see each other. And I see the age here is almost close to each other. I'm a little older than you, probably. But the phenomena, the paradigm of education is going down globally. So we can bring that idea and then there's that evidence. Share that. Do you see it that way? As opposed to be so-and-so said, so did. But, and then we shape, check the new paradigm, the new normal. And then we can share with others. Since we have technology now, it's just wonderful. It's not time to say, well, I don't know how. It's just time.
Yeah. This is good, Philip. And one of the things, however, this is all good what we're talking about here. One thing missing in this design, if we did this session, and that's not it's where are we addressing this notion of what is distinct about doctoral education, and how might we take what we are learning to help us be more focused back in our classrooms. So Haishin, if you could, as you listen to this, we might be setting the stage for that conversation, but I don't know if we're getting at that. So what do you all think as you look at this? Where are we getting at? Is a draft strategy part of defining what the field is? What is OD&C doctoral education? What makes it unique? Do we need to address that and look at some opportunities for learning? What do you all think?
Oh, that cricket. Let me see whether I understand your question. Are you asking us to think of what would be an appropriate dialogue and a topic to be able to address the issues of the academy? But
No, I was thinking more along the lines of Haishin had said earlier, and this is one of the outcomes. If you scroll up and you look at the outcomes, one of them is around what is distinct about OD&C doctoral education,
okay,
and the implications for how he might focus his courses and learning outcomes.
Mhm.
That's not really in so far in what we are focusing on. And what do we do about that? Is it something for later that we identify, or that we identify here as one important strategy and we build in some, one of the implementation, one of the priorities or projects would be what is unique about it, and how do we, and its implications for teaching, and do we build something where people can participate in something afterwards? Or do we do it? Do we need to do something there?
I believe that it has to do, it's a possibility of how you set up the design, because it's clearly one of the critical issues. So you said day one, we're going to understand the current state and the critical issues. This should come out as a critical issue. How do I influence my own teaching? And in the strategy, that is without any question one of the things to address in strategy. So I think it has to do with how you design it, that it could be integrated. And then clearly it would be an active part of action planning.
I hope also the dialogue would involve looking at what's critical, conscious, we need to promote to do things the same way we've been doing. What's new? What's in the practical? Then we have to look at, for example, I'm helping creating 2 universities, one in Kenya, Diaspora University Town, and another one in Guinea. And the people recruiting the founders of the university, I asked them that question: what do you bring on board to change the status of the current education system globally, locally, nationally, and globally, to what is productive? We see clearly we have not been educating people with the skills to transform and to sustain their prestige of learning. The prestige is gone. How do we gain that back? Prestige, not the one which is like being the best, the cream of the crop. No, how do you engage the learner to be responsible for their own learning? At what level? And all the way when you become the doctoral, it's like terminal level whereby you contribute to the wisdom of the world, but it's been divided based on the way education has been created. So we have no choice to engage globally today. We have to think that. We cannot think regional. We cannot think, yes. So we
got that, Philip. Yeah, we got that. And so I think that the question I have here in our last part of our conversation is, could each of you tell me what, based on what you see, maybe we just do a round robin check-in. What do we need to do during the sessions? Is there something we need? Like, if we don't worry about time, I'll come back and we'll have to redesign. Would we do a 4th session called, action planning, then a 4th session? So what about the learning environment, or maybe a focused session? We can do a session 4 on, 4 on my classroom, implications for teaching and learning at the class level and program level. I don't know. So let's just check in. I'd like to hear from each of you so that we all kind of say, what would you do? What would you do? That's what, and so I'll start with, hey, Sheen, if you're okay with that. I've been wanting to make sure I'm tracking on what you've been saying. What would you do based on what you see here?
Learning to learn. It'll be a good topic. And it depends on whether I'm presenting or I'm a participant. As a participant, I would like to know how to distinguish the learning as a professor, as a faculty, and also learning as a student, and how to integrate them, and how to measure that, measurement of that.
Gotcha. Right. So so Philip, hold on a second. I want to get Hey Sheen in here. I want to make sure each person. Hey Sheen, what would you do?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure if it's relevant, but it'll be helpful for me to listen to how others are managing their courses and how others planned to change their courses so that we can engage in, I don't know, roundtable discussions about what would be the best way to achieve a certain learning outcome and what we've been doing, whether they've been successful or not. What are some lessons learned based on our teaching experience? Just learning and sharing those experiences will be helpful to me.
Yeah, that would make sense to me. I'm talking about here's what we're doing in classes, some technique, an assignments, or whatever it is that seem to be useful. I think that'd be a good session. Good.
At that, let's see over here. Tanya, what about you?
Yeah, I also like this idea to share the practical experience from the classroom and see how it resonates with the outcomes of the dialogue, and how if this is still a good way to teach OD&C, or if we should change based on our prior sessions and what we learned from there, and bring it to a new session, mix our prior experience with the new experience, and then maybe, yeah, get an idea to change the individual programs at our schools, or come up with a totally new schedule. Or I think it's quite good to have this next step, this action step in this series. Yeah, it's good.
Good. And let's see here, I'll check in. So David, you, and then Ann, and then Herb and Carol, and then I think we'll all have checked in around this. You're on mute.
Okay, so I think we're getting into the minutia here with session 4, and we've got an opportunity to explore the big ideas around this initiative. So in other words, if session 1 was all about the current state or really what the problem is, and then session 2 would be around what are the big ideas in order to solve those problems. So we're not zeroing in right away on curriculum. And then based on those big ideas, what are some initial action we can take? Okay. So for me, I think this should be an opportunity to engage everyone around some really interesting big ideas around this initiative.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking along the same lines. You go from the general, and then, if you have more than one session, you end up narrowing it down in each session until on the very last one, you're saying, here are some things you can do in your classroom. Or, that's the same lines. David, I was agreeing with you.
Or it might not even be things you can do in your classroom based on the big ideas,
Yeah.
And we'll have some design features, like, for example, it could be possible that the session on 4 could be around an open space on what are the implications for you and your teaching, research, or practice, or whatever you want to convene on.
Right.
Do an open space and people convene, and like Haishin would pick a thing around teaching and learning, and a group would convene, would go and talk about that, another group would convene on something else, and we would come back and report out kind of on our thoughts. That could be session 4. The first 3 are really about, setting this up as a longer term initiative. And the 4th one is getting down into what do you want to get out of based on this? What do you want to get, which would help us maybe get focused on some hot topics that we want to continue to engage people around in the first 3. I don't know. So I'm thinking out loud. We'll stew on this. We got next week. So let me think here. Ann, I think you, and then Herb, I think you have to speak as well. So Ann, what are your thoughts?
Thanks. Yeah, I think I'm more on the big, okay, what's happening now? What are the big issues? What are the big opportunities, right? What's the opportunity focus? And then I do like some point, wherever it is, whether it's action planning or session 4, that we do break out. And I like the idea of open space. I was thinking of, let's use some tools that we know. Yeah, open space is one, future surge, those kinds of things. So let's have some dialogue around that. And we can all pick. I do think classroom and what happens there is important. I actually started liking the mentoring idea. I could see myself as a mentor. I'm at that gray-haired stage. So maybe there are a couple people who could talk about that. Or how do we collaborate across universities? I could see myself engaging in a dialogue about that. So I think there does need to be some space somewhere in the flow that we have the opportunity to do that. Otherwise, what a group.
Right.
Looking forward to working with all of you.
Thanks, Dan. Herb? Holman?
I suspect with my limited perspective, I'm taking away more than I'm giving, but I understand it's very logical, the first 3 sessions being big picture and strategic thinking. I'm more drawn to session 4, which is again more pragmatic in the takeaways, obviously. So beyond that, I don't know that I can add much more to what's been said.
Okay. Great. And Carol?
I like the differentiation between the first 3 and the 4th, and I have a really practical question. How do we ensure continuity? If we don't do it in a half day, so the sessions are together and we allocate time for the participants so they know it's in this time frame, what's the likelihood that we're going to have to redo 1, 2, and 3 if many people decide they want to come to 4? And I don't.
That's not. Yeah, that's.
That's,
So there's 2. Yeah, that's not. I always love the evolving, revolving concept when I do this work, and that is, it's going to evolve as we grow go through the steps. It's a revolving door. Come to one or all or parts. Now, when you come in to one session, you jump in and you get a little bit of a briefing of what happened before. You know, you watch these series on TV and they'll say what happened in the last session, just a brief capture, and then you jump in. You know, so like you could have there's ways to do that. So I think we just make sure that we help people come in. What have you done the last 3? How's it build? Second thing is I want us to be mindful that this is a longer term initiative where we're going to use technology to engage us globally, and which this is a conversation that we've been having since this fall. We've had 3 now. We'll continue to on the website. If you go into the website, you'll see the playlist of all the previous sessions that we've had, and we'll have a working document, and it'll be a growing document. So it could be that there's a real strong initiative around teaching and learning, and how do we do this? And we create a series, and people sign up and go and commit to going through a process after this, right? So I think we have opportunities there. So with that, and I got to find out what our limitations are. So I'll find out and I'll share with you before the next week's session. So that'll be good. And somebody's going to come next week that couldn't be here this week, promise you. So that'll be, we just catch people up and we just keep going. People are quite resilient, able to catch up. We just don't reinvent the wheel. That's where I think we get sidetracked. The last question I have for you is, who needs to be involved in the session? And we have 5 minutes and then we're done, or 3 minutes. So brainstorm some things, like we want to have OD&C division members. Do we want to invite other divisions? Right? What else? Who else do who do we invite? Who we want to make sure that the board
I would say other divisions, because we've already said it's a multidisciplinary. Maybe we could attract some people from I'm in the strategic management, strategy division. And so I see a lot of this, I include all this in my strategy classes. So I would say, include the OB division, include strategy, and I don't know, maybe others.
What I got: strategic management, MC, HR, OB. What other divisions need to be invited? We invite them all, but which ones do we want to focus on? I got that. MC, management consulting.
Oh.
HR, OB. What other ones would you all want to invite? Any other divisions? I want to make sure the board members are invited and that they are committed to attending,
I think SIM, right? Social issues and management might be possible.
Okay.
I've collaborated with them.
Okay.
The other thing is, well, the board members you said from OD&C, I think somebody needs to, be expressly invited.
We're invited, and we got a nice list of 130 so people already that have signed up to be a part of this conversation online. So if you go to the
Okay.
website, we've got, how many people do we have, Herb, now that have intentionally signed up to be involved in this conversation? You can go there and see the list of people. We call them members. And we're sponsoring organizations, and that kind of thing.
Oh,
Now-
do we specifically have somebody from the ODEA, like Matt Minahan or?
Yeah, they
Yeah. Okay.
okay.
I would like to call you and just update me on the organizational structure and how it was formed, so I can find out. I'll come in because I didn't know. I just saw the topic and I just jumped on it.
Yeah. So we have-
Right
yeah.
now, I see institutions who are as participants, invite them who are developing programs, masters and doctorate degrees programs, and also designing the new way of learning. If we can send out their survey and see those who would do that. Like, I was attracted when you talked about it, because we are creating a doctoral, about six proposed doctoral programs, but no idea how they're going to.
Yeah. So right on. So what we want to do is, I think we need to be thinking about companies. Like, we can reach out to companies and say, hey, can you come? Send some, come and be a part. Maybe we have a panel of people from the companies that speak virtually and just share their perspective, from major European companies, major Asian, African, United States, that kind of thing. We have the journals, human relations, JABS, ODR, ODJ. We have ODA, NTL. We have the divisions. So think about that. But I think that we want to invite them to be a part of the initiative. So if you go to the website and look at the list, we want to have sponsoring organizations start growing. We want to have the people on that list, 127. We want that to get really big, right? A lot of people. That's small. I mean, that's a very small, 127 seems like a lot, but it's small when we think of what we want to do. So let's, we're done. It's 11:59. Is there any closing words that you all have as we check out? Tell me, like, are you coming back to the next meeting? Yes, maybe, no.
And when is it?
Next
week?
Tuesday at same time, same place.
Ah, yes.
So you're all coming back. So we're doing it. What we've done today is worth you coming back to. I got to make sure that we're on point with what you need. Yes? Does anybody need something to ensure we do next time in order for us to continue to make this worthwhile for you? Okay. I'll have more information regarding what our parameters are from the academy. I'll clean this up and come with more of a draft proposal for you all to look at next week. We will live work on it. I'll send something out maybe in advance, but I don't want you to have to do a lot of work. You show up, we're going to work on it. Okay. So it's not a lot of, and then after that, we make some wordsmith from there and submit. Okay. Is that cool?
Yes.
All right.
Thank you for holding the space for all of us and for this initiative.
Yeah. Thank you all. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.
Thank you.
Stay
Hey,
warm.
David, can you stay on? David, can you stay on so I can check in with you? And I'll see you all later.
Yep. Stay warm.